My name's Sophie, and I have a chocolate business in York. And York is between here and Scotland. York, if anybody wants to watch on the BBC programme next week, we have a programme talking about York and the chocolate industry. And I first went to York nearly 20 years ago to study at university. And when I arrived in the city, the whole city smelt of chocolate. In York, they've been making chocolate since 1785. And there's two companies that are really quite prevalent in the city. Rowntree's created a product called Kit Kat, and Terry's created a product called the chocolate orange. And so when I first got to the city, the whole city smelt of chocolate. People had been working in the chocolate industry for generations, and most people in the city had one family or another that was involved with the industry. They were either a Terry's family or they were a Rowntree's family, and they kind of had big feuds if family members worked for both companies. The industry used to employ 20% of the city. So together with railways and feasting and entertainment, York was considered the capital of the north. And Rowntree's sourced its cocoa from Nigeria, amongst other countries around the world where the British chocolate industry grew and thrived from. But when I went to York, Nestlé had taken over Rowntree's in the first hostile takeover of British industry. And so many people in the city were very bitter that our chocolate industry was being taken away. Kraft had taken over Terry's, and through my time in employment, I started to see the car park at the Terry's chocolate factory start to empty and close down as week by week more and more cars left the car park as the factory closed, and those employees were taken to Poland to go and teach other people how to make the chocolate orange. So the city was really in a very sad state about its chocolate industry, and it was something, whilst all these people have very fond memories, they didn't want to really talk about it. And I kept asking people, why don't we celebrate chocolate in York? And the answers I got every single time is that's Kraft's job or that's Nestlé's job. I was like, really? Do we really think we can trust those people to look after the industry moving forward? And I heard so many amazing stories that people had had. So every time I got a taxi, there was always somebody that had a wonderful story about having forgotten to turn the button on the Smartie machine and suddenly being knee-deep in Smarties all over the place. Or some stories I heard the other day when the tanker started to drive off and the whole factory got filled with cocoa liquor. There's still incidences that happen today, and the city is rich with these stories that have kind of filled the lives and memories of people. So chocolate means something very different in the city of York. For most of the people there, it means their friendships, their camaraderie, their relationships, their loved ones, the place where they learnt to read, the place where they learnt how to sew, or many women learnt how to do woodwork. There's so many stories in the city of York around chocolate, and that was something we wanted to make sure wasn't lost. So many skills, so much expertise. And so I kind of said, why don't we celebrate this chocolate industry? And I kind of thought, nobody's going to listen to me. I'm just really this kind of little girl with a big idea. So I thought, where does it start? And it starts by making chocolates. So I started making chocolates in my own kitchen at home, and that was nearly 10 years ago. And lots of people I worked with really liked chocolate, so that was quite good. So every time I kept making something, they kept eating it. I thought, well, I clearly can't be that bad. And then one day, it kind of felt like the whole universe was telling me that maybe this was the direction that I had to go in. So I went to my manager and I said, right, I'm going to give up my job and I'm going to start a chocolate business. I'm going to be a chocolate expert. And everybody laughed at me. They said, Sophie, such a job does not exist. You can't call yourself a chocolate expert. I said, well, I've spent a lifetime eating chocolate. I think I know what good chocolate tastes like. And I'm fairly certain the more I understand about where our chocolate has come from, the more I know that I can no longer eat those products that I see on the supermarket shelves. And the more I started to understand, the more disgusted I was with what was going on in the sector. And I thought, well, all right, let's give it a go. There's not much else to do, is there, really? So 9 years ago, I started a chocolate business in my own home. I'd been making chocolates, I'd given up work, and I said, well, let's maybe create a chocolate festival. So we have a chocolate festival in York. It's 7 years old now. You're all welcome to come. 7 years ago, next month, we opened the York Cocoa House. And the York Cocoa House has been inspired by everything we've learned about cocoa and about chocolate. The cocoa houses were quite instrumental places in bringing communities together, bringing people together to share a drink, and share a drink that wasn't just alcohol. And in these places where people taught and they shared their stories, they started changing the world, because for the first time ever, they didn't go home drunk. So they remembered what they talked about, and most of our political movements ended up coming from these chocolate houses and cocoa houses. And I started getting really, really enthusiastic. It's like, did you know that York wrote the first confectionery recipe book ever in the 1730s? Like, did you know the earliest confectionery recipe is in the Minster Library, and it dates back to the 1200s? Did you know the first group of people wanting to make a better chocolate industry met and formed in York in the 1900s? And I was like, all these amazing facts, and all these people in our city, they've all got this history with chocolate, but we're throwing it away and we're letting these big companies take it away from us. Why aren't we doing anything about it? And everyone was just like, that's someone else's job, Sophie. So 7 months ago, we opened our own chocolate factory. And we brought chocolate making back to York. Thank you, that's very, very kind of you, but it's been a journey which has been so, so humbling. And it really, I think for me, made me believe that we could do this, because 2 years ago, a gentleman connected with me on LinkedIn, and we've been having, he's not listening, is he? We've been having stories and ranting on LinkedIn together, probably for the last 2 years, sharing this idea that actually if we want the future that we believe in, then it's up to us to make it happen. And it's not someone else's responsibility to do that. I was very proud when I spoke at the London Chocolate Forum that Angus hosted just 2 weeks ago. I've been going to these events for many, many years. I've been going to the ISM Forum in Cologne for nearly 9 years, and I've seen the world changing, and I've seen myself being a female independent chocolate maker having a role in the chocolate industry, and I see that it's not just me anymore. Actually, we have friends all around the world, and to have friends in Nigeria. And I met Fuller 2 weeks ago. Where is he? Here. I was so inspired by your story, to hear what you are doing, going back and creating your own farm in Nigeria. I meet so many people, farmers in Colombia, that are doing the same, that the world is suddenly open to them to be able to farm in their homeland and have a say and say, actually, maybe we can make this a different world. My chocolate maker, I talk about her often. She's 23, and I'm so proud of her. She has been, I can't talk more proudly of her. She is running my business for me right now, and she is the strongest, most confident, most independent woman who loves going off and discovering the stories that I share when I come back and been listening and meeting people like Fuller and like His Majesty and everybody else that we've met on this story. There was I've got lots of inspiration from learning about the chocolate makers of the past. Because every time I said, I want to build a chocolate factory, everybody said, you can't do that. I was like, oh, why not? It's like, because cocoa is really dangerous. I was like, really? Is it that dangerous? Oh, well, there's salmonella in cocoa. Like, do you know what? If you're going to put a sewage pipe over your chocolate tank like they did at one big chocolate factory, then maybe something dodgy might happen. But there's not. These are wonderful beans, and these are amazing beans for us to have the opportunity to play with. I've learned so much more in the last 6 months by being able to work with cocoa and by meeting these communities than I ever knew existed about chocolate. And I think that's really how the world is changing. The world is changing into a place where we have friends in different time zones, which is great because they always message throughout the night and they have no concept of different time zones. But it's beautiful to feel like we're making a product together. We're creating chocolate together. We are growing cocoa together, and we are learning about flavours, and we are moving around the world more. We are learning to enjoy each other's cuisines and explore each other's taste buds and to see the world through taste. And we are very privileged to be able to share that journey with a lot of school children that join us and to see that their minds are so open. They are so enthusiastic. They are prepared to explore the world, their minds, and their taste buds through the chocolate that we have been making and the communities we've been working with. So I do hope to be able to have the privilege of working with some of your cocoa. But even more so, I look forward to the day where I get to visit your chocolate factory in Eti-Oni and be able to come and maybe make some chocolate with you there. Thank you.